Well, hello everyone. This is Robin Carter with Robin's Creations. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator out of Flower Mound, Texas. And today, which is September 20th, I'm here to share my first set of alternatives using the September 2025 paper pumpkin kit named Fall for Toile. Before we begin, let me thank each and every one of my subscribers to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and welcome back to my channel for this video. And if you are new to my channel, I hope you find some inspiration in this video that you would consider subscribing to my YouTube channel. So let me switch to hands down so I can share the next set of paper pumpkin kits coming up. I always like to do that before getting started. So this is the current kit that we're going to be working with, and I'm going to work with elements from this card here. Okay, but coming up and going on now is the subscription period for the October paper pumpkin kit named Cozy Christmas. It is a card kit. It says 3 each of 3 designs for a total of 9. But if you are new to my channel, know that I create many more than 9. That's what I do, and it includes pre-cut pieces. Let's see, I always like to find the Stampin' Spot is going to be pecan pie, which I believe that is new. And I'm going to be using pecan pie, I think, during this video. So if you hold off and wait till you get your next kit, you'll have pecan pie if that is not already in your supplies. Okay, and then of course November, December. But also you can already purchase the next quarter add-on dies. The item number is 167855. I don't have them yet in person to show you, but here's an image. It has a nice tag, another flower, the joy, which has some stitching, another leaf, and like I don't know the name of that, the center of the flower thing that sticks up. So don't miss out on those. They are while supplies last, and you do have to be a Paper Pumpkin subscriber to purchase those. Also want to keep reminding everyone that with the changeover of Paper Pumpkin to Stampin'Up.com, you have to pick your demonstrator in your subscriptions. It could be different than what you have signed to your normal account. Just make sure you look at those and that you are giving your demonstrator the support they need, because it could just be going to Stampin' Up! When you need to support your demonstrator. So check that out. Make sure all your accounts are in good standing order, your payment information is up to date, and so forth. You'll find that under where it says, mine says Hi Robin, and then you go to subscriptions, and then there you can see your subscription and if you have a demonstrator selected. So I always like to share that information because it's still kind of new. We're still kind of going through the bumps of working with that. Okay, and then also the new mini catalog is going on, and I am using, they did say that the kit coordinates, it's going to be my third tab, I should have titled them, with this suite of products. Now I am going to be bringing in some of these coordinating products, so I always like to let people know that, and it really is going to help stretch our supplies. So this shows the supplies individually, so mainly the stamps and dies here I'm going to use today. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me set this behind me so it's not in my way. Now, like I said, I was going to be working with the first quarter of products, although I put my instruction sheet somewhere, maybe up here with my thing. I'll find it. But anyway, I usually store it in here with my larger size envelopes, which are part of what I call my favorite things, which are items that Stampin' Up! Does not carry that I find very helpful in organizing my supplies. So like I said, we're going to create 3, like my title said, I guess I haven't said yet. We're going to create 3 alternative cards using just a half of a card base and adding some additional supplies. So for this, I used the textured note dies right here, and you can see I used the second largest and then the 4th largest here. I first trimmed this base, you know, if it was solid, let me put it back together here for you, to just a hair short of 4 1/4 by 5 5.5. So like I said, I took like maybe a millimeter off of it, just to so a little bit of my card base would show. So just know that. I know I didn't put it together right, but anyway, you get the idea. And then I took this die and I did my best to center it, kind of measuring, okay, cut out the base, which left me that piece. And then I took this piece and cut the center out of it, doing my best to get the center. I do kind of get out my ruler to see if it's kind of centered, and it looked like I did a pretty good job. So that's how I get my 3 pieces. So let me put these dies up so they don't go missing, because these are some of my favorites to use. Hopefully they don't retire for a long time. I'm having trouble keeping up with all the retired products. So I do my best to use current products so that if you don't have them, you could purchase them still. In my PDF of instructions, which I eventually put out on my Etsy shop, I do kind of list some other things you might have that would work. For instance, the stitched rectangles would work probably. So you could use the same sort of idea here. So now we need to get out our card components. I'm going to start with the inside first. So let me just set these aside, and hopefully I don't cover them up and look for them later. I have all kinds of supplies. It's taken me a little longer to prep for this video with all the cutting and stuff. So grab a cold drink of water, watch this thing all the way through, and then you can always replay it if you want to create these. I find it best just to watch the first time so you get an idea of what we are creating. Okay, so here are my components for this card. I do like to keep these in another one of my favorite things. These are like 5 by 7, and they hold all my cards while I'm creating cards. Even if I'm not doing a video, I can get all my components together, and that way I know when I'm ready to work on the card, I have those here. So like I said, we're going to start with the center and work our way out. And I'm going to bring out my usual thick white card base. Now we no longer have thick vanilla, and I don't really like how thin the regular vanilla is for a card base, so I'm going to stick with my thick white card base for this. I like to feel and see. It looks like I did set it right. This side is just a hair longer this way, so you notice it's easier to open up your card that way. Okay, so we're also going to use a layer of pecan pie cardstock, and I have embossed this with the Timber 3D embossing folder. Now this did retire not too long ago, but hopefully many of you have it, and if not, just a plain layer of pecan pie would work. And I did trim this to just a hair less than 5.5, or yeah, 5.5. You can see there, not even quite a full 1/8, and I did the same thing with the length that way, just a hair less than 4.25. More than a hair, more like 1/8 of an inch, or not 1/8 of an inch, a 1/16 of an inch around the base, around that layer, so that it will show just a little bit of the card base. I like that tends to add another layer to your card, is why I do that. So like I said, that did recently retire. A plain would work. Also, when you're embossing this layer, so this is going to be a horizontal card like this, and I know if I look at trees or something, it seems like the pattern goes this way, so I did stick in my cardstock that way. If it's going to be a vertical, I'd probably do it that way. That way the vein of the tree runs up. I think that's how it works. It probably wouldn't matter, but I thought I would just share that tip in case it does matter to you. Now, like I said, this one is cut with the 4th largest textured note, so it has some stitching there, but I wanted to help it pop. So here's where I'm going to bring in some vanilla. Okay, I have a layer of vanilla for this to go on. Okay, and now we're going to create a scene. I like to do this a lot because, you know, you have all these supplies and you want to do that. Let me tell you the layer size of this before I get started. So it looks like it's 3 7/8 by, there's my measurements, 2 3/8. So that would layer nicely with that 4th largest textured note. So then I got a piece of white, and this is 3 by 4 1/4. Okay, and we're going to create a scene. So let me get my blocks. I usually do this on my glass mat, but it really reflects on my lights, so I don't want that to happen. So I save all these blocks from kit collections, and I use them like a like a palette to put color on. So let's start. I've got a bunch of inks over here. I'm going to use Balmy Blue. It's my favorite when I'm using a sky type scene. Let me find my blending brush. Like I said, I have a whole bunch of supplies over here on my right hand side because I need several blending brushes. Okay, so I take the blue and I swirl it on my pad. Now if you just have a spot, you can just dab the spot on your block and then blend it around. This one's getting quite dry. I probably need to re-ink it soon. Okay, and then I'm going to get a piece of scrap paper, maybe. If not, I think this this grid sheet has served its purpose well. Okay, so then I just start lightly blending, not pressing a lot. And when I get low, I pick up more ink from the block. So swirling it around on your block helps to smooth it out so you don't get real big blotches. And I think I'm getting really dry. I may have to get out my spot here in a minute rather than wait for me to re-ink this one. Okay, so about there is good for this. No, it's not. This is a vertical card. Let me keep going. I kind of did the wrong side. And the good thing is, you know, cardstock is double-sided, so if you really don't like what you did, you can flip it over and start again. And so let's see if I can do a better job blending the sky. So let's just start. I mean, I'm just basically setting the brush on there, and I'm liking how that looks already. Better than the other side. The other side was a little heavy. So let's keep going with that till you get it like you like it. Okay, and then we're going to leave a little at the bottom for grass. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So now I'm going to get out Old Olive ink and a new block because I'm switching colors. Sorry, that was a tumble of all my blocks. And let me find my Old Olive blending brush. Now I am using minis. The full size would work. I just find I have a little more control with the minis. So let's get the grass on here. Just setting it down, not really pressing yet. And then after it starts to go smooth, you can press harder to get a little darker. The green did really well on that. Okay, now I'm going to add in some actual grass. Now, I didn't even realize, it's not why I bought this set, but this Autumn Trees, it has this little bitty stamp of grass sprig. So I thought that would add some interest to the card. So I'm just going to go along. Now, this is where, if it were photopolymer, it'd be a little easier. So I'm just going to have to kind of eye where I did pretty good on that one. Sometimes they overlap, which that's fine. Okay, so let's just put some grass sprigs in our grass. And now I'm going to kind of go off. Whoops. That's one thing. I pressed too hard and I got ink on the side there. But good thing is it looks like a little sprig of grass. So with your cling stamps, just basically set it on your ink pad. And then same thing when you go to stamp it. Okay, I think that's good for grass. And let me clean this. I'm going to clean this one with my chamois. Okay, so next we want to, in the dies for the Autumn Trees, are this little deer scene. And I cut it in basic white so that I could color it. So I'm going to get out my silicone mat for this and make sure I've got it on the right side. I do. And then I'm going to bring in my blends. like I said, I've got a ton of supplies over here. I'm trying to keep it organized. So I did use gray granite for this rock. And you could use light or dark or two-tone it if you want. There's not a whole lot of detail there, so you can just do that. So when I colored this, I noticed, oops, that is like grass or something. So you can use a blend, or if you have the markers, which they are retired now, since it's such a little spot, you can just do those with your markers or your pens. And I missed a little bit of the rock there. Okay, so let's, now for the deer, I brought in pecan pie blends. If you had just watercolor pencils, you could do the early espresso really lightly. That was not the light and the dark. Let's see, I have the dark. Let me get the light one over here too. Like I said, I have a whole ton of supplies there. All right, so let's start with the light and let's see how we like it. So I'm just going to color the whole deer. I'm going to use the detail end. Now when you're coloring with this, if you'll put it on its side, you tend not to damage the point as quickly as you might if you were going straight down at it. So I just do the side. All right, so there's mama deer. And let's do baby deer. Now, at my parents' house, we have some land behind the house, and there's been quite a few deer going out, and there's some ponds, and they drink and go sit in the pond. So it's kind of nice to see the deer. And for the baby deer, I like to add little white spots to him. So I'm looking for my white gel pen, and we can actually make their tails a little white right there. My gel pen is also part of my favorite things. And you can just do some light spotting. I know those are little bitty spots. You may not be able to see them. I'll bring it up closer. Can you see the little spots I put on there? Okay, and then we need to color the grass, of course. So again, I'm going to just use my marker here because I have those. And I'm just doing a straight line. So it shouldn't be too jumbled up mess. Okay, and then fill this in. And then I'm just going to fill in the base of these. And we're going to say those are like, I don't know, some kind of wildflower. I didn't quite get his foot right. And if it's darker, that's fine, because that could be their hoofs. Okay. Okay, and then I don't have the blends of the darling duckling. So I'm just going to use my marker for this. I need to go back in and do, I missed a little bit the tip of the green. So like I said, we're just making a scene, and you can do this for so many different cards. We're going to be doing this a couple times today, but the scenes will be a little different. Okay, that looks good. All right, so let's go ahead and adhere these together while we're here and I don't lose them. So you know my favorite is the Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. Now generally I do with the raised pattern up, but for the wood I think if it were sunken in it would look a little better. I don't think anyone's going to really say, gosh, she really should have put this on the other side. So you pick whichever one you like. And put that down. Okay, and then let's attach the card base piece to the very vanilla. My favorite one is the last one we're going to do today, so stay tuned. And if you find some things you like while watching the video, give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that. And then we'll go ahead and adhere this down to our card base on the pecan pie. and then watch your scene to make sure it goes right side up, that the trees are right side up. Okay, like that. So now we have our scene, and you notice the deer, it does go all the way across like that, which is fine. But you could, if you wanted it on a different side, you could cut that off. So I'm going to cut that off because I want the deer on this side and I want my rock on the other side. So let me see how easy I can do that. I'm just going to eyeball right here beside the hoof and trim that. Okay, because I want my deer on the right hand side, and then I want my rock over here, so you can overlap a little bit if that's how you like it. All right, so just little specks of glue to put these down, and this is my fine tip glue bottle that's also part of my favorite things. Okay, try not to get gluey fingers. All right, and then we're going to put the rock over here. And you'll know why I did this in a minute. But if you, well, I guess if you have this, you have the tree as well. So in the autumn trees was this nice little kind of like the leaves are less, kind of like fall when the trees start losing their leaves. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I made my tree. So first I cut the whole thing. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, first I cut the whole base just in white. Okay, all right, and then I cut another one and stamped this one. And then I took the die and I cut out the center, the detail die that's in the autumn trees. I have those over here. So they're on the second page of dies. I like to teach while I go so that if you have these, you know what to do. So this is the outline and this is the detail. So I cut out the center and I did just kind of eyeball with the trunk of where to cut that out. So this is trash. We're not going to use that. And then I cut a layer of that with pecan pie. Now you could use early espresso. I did one with early espresso and it was just really stark against this. Okay, and that way you can put that into the tree versus it setting on top. If you decide to set it on top, that's fine, but I kind of liked it where it was all one piece. And then for the second piece, I'm using this stamp here that looks like just dots, but I'm using it like leaves. And I'm going to get my Calypso Coral. I did stamp that in Calypso Coral, by the way, the whole thing. And then I'm just going to, let me get this back out so I can see my tree. When it's white on white, it's kind of hard. So I'm just going to stamp some leaves on this back part because you can see through it. So you want to make sure you have some leaves, and it's okay if you overlap on this part. It just looks like a bunch of leaves, so you can do as many of those as you like. Then I'm going to adhere this to that. Okay, and I'm going to do it flush so that it all lines up like that. I'm going to see if I can, I think I'm going to do one of my favorite things to do is use this silicone brush, which it's just a longer like basting brush that I've cut the tips off of. My downline actually gave this to me because it comes in like a pack of 5. So she gave me one. I need more glue than that. And I can put this on my silicone mat. And then I can dab it there. And that way all the little brush pieces of the tree get some glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and help that out by putting some dots around the bigger part. So when this dries, you can just peel off the glue. It's kind of fun to do that. So let's set this on that. Line that up exactly so it doesn't look like it's double layered. And so that's how I made this tree. My silicone mat's getting nasty. But this is why I separated it, because I wanted to put the tree like here. But one of my favorite stamps in this kit are it's duck or geese. You decide. I'm going to just call them ducks. You could do this in Calypso Coral. I'm going to stamp them in Early Espresso ink. And I'm going to do it over here because I want to put my sentiment on the other side. I hope it's good. I ruined a whole scene before because I smeared my ducks in the sky, and I was like, oh no, when I was making my first one, so I had to do that again. And then just the nature of the beast with Calypso Coral and browns and reds is your stamps will get discolored, see? It doesn't damage them at all. And actually, the more you use photopolymer stamps, at least I find, the better they stamp. So you just know it's been well loved. So let's put this tree right on the scene. I'm going to do this whole layer up in dimensional, so that's why I don't want to do my tree also. And I'm going to put it right where the gap of those, to hide where those meet up. Okay, I see one thing I didn't do on this one. To make this one green like grass versus red grass to match, I just went in and colored over that with my green to make the green grass. Okay, so we're done the hard work, and now we're just going to layer it on some very vanilla. So that's just a 1/4 inch longer at 4.5 by 3 1/4. You could do pecan pie again, but I have pecan pie in the background, so that's why I'm layering with, oops, very vanilla. I went off the page there. I better wipe that up or it'll get all over everything. Okay, that's good. I'm gonna have to move along. This is gonna be kind of one of my longer videos, so be patient with me and stay till the end so you don't miss them all. Because I don't want to do a part 2 unless I really have to. If it goes really long, I'll make this part 1 of 2, so I don't keep you quite as long. I started to, pre-do a lot of things like the coloring, but I think some of you like to see how I do that. It's kind of a teaching opportunity, and then I'm just going to put that on there. Okay, now the sentiment, you can choose yours. The ones in the kit are great. Also, if you purchase the coordinating products, these sentiments are great. And I do have my cut files for the sentiments for these and the kit on my Etsy shop. I noticed this morning I mistitled it as August. So I fixed the title. So if you were out there looking for September, you're right. It wasn't there until this morning because I had titled it wrong. Pick a sentiment of your choice. I can show you some that I've pre-stamped here. So these are from the kit, and I do them in several different sizes. So this one looks like not as thick. This one is, so this is the least amount of border, and I think I've already used them on a couple of different cards. And here's one. So see, if you wanted to, especially with the next layer, because I did them in 3, you could cut this out of a colored cardstock or use your blending brush and then mat it, okay, with those. And so any of these sentiments would be great for this card. If you wanted it more like autumn, you could do use the ones in the Amber Autumn Tree. Blessed to have you in my life. Okay, so that's card. Let's get on with the next one. Put this away. All right, this one is more fallish in particular. So again, we're going to need that middle piece that we cut with our textured notes dies at the start. Again, I'm going to use thick white just because I like the sturdiness of it. You could use a solid colored cardstock. I don't know. I just tend to do the white. And then I brought in a layer, again, just cut shy of a full card front. That one covers it pretty much. And then I embossed it with the, not timber, it's the new one. Here it is. Peaceful Greenery 3D die. Now there is one that kind of has like some little leaves on it, and I don't know, I missed that in my first order. It's on its way, but I thought this kind of looks like fall, especially because we're going to cover this whole thing right there. So that's what I embossed this copper clay piece with. So I thought I would create a similar scene to my last card. I probably should have done that one first, and I used the big tree stamp here in this kit, and it is quite large, and I excuse me, I have already stamped it and colored it. So what I find easiest to do is well, I cut out my thing, put it in my Stamparatus, I stamp it, and I did the whole thing with my spot on this part. Let me just get that out and show you real quick. All right, I have my sentiments in there. I need my other plate. Okay, and I shared not too long ago, a couple videos ago, of how I do this lined up stamping. So check it out if you've missed it. It's kind of my new and improved way to get centered stamping using a stamp positioning tool. Now I use the Stamparatus. The same process would work with the Misty. Just know that you just need a stamp positioning tool. Now, bringing in this tree, and as you can see, it is quite large. So I have this die cut right there. You gotta stick it in. And then I take my Cajun Craze spot, which was our ink spot this month, and I just ink it up around the leaves. You could use your full one, but I try to avoid the actual stem here. Okay, and then I stamp. And if you missed a spot, the great thing with a stamp positioning tool is you can go over it again. And that's kind of light. Let me do it again. I like it a little darker than that. Just make sure that thing stays in the corner or it's not going to be lined up. And hopefully mine was in the corner to start with. Okay, I like that better. So then I take my early espresso or pecan pie. I'm pretty sure I used early espresso, but I guess I used pecan pie. And then, actually, I want to clean that first because I don't want to contaminate my pecan pie with Cajun Craze. And also I shared, like, that's a very detailed stamp. So when I want to make sure I get it really clean, I use my handy dandy paint edge tool that has the fuzzies, much like the Stampin' Scrub. Now I have put Stampin' Mist on this, and I can just reactivating it by adding some water. And this will be sure I get in the details. Now I don't want my Cajun Craze to get damp there because it will flick off some water. So I like to make sure I get it really clean. This is part of my favorite things too. So I find it works really well with stamp positioning tools versus trying to bring in your big Stampin' Scrub piece. All right, so then I go in with my pecan pie and I go up the tree using the corner like that to get as far up the tree as I can. Okay, make sure that's in the corner and stamp. Okay, so that way it is, at least it starts off, and I go in with green later, but you just color the whole thing, or you can go ahead and do the detail cutout with the dies, or do the coloring first, whichever you prefer. It doesn't really matter because you're going to cut out the center. So I just wanted to show that part. I have one pre-done, so we're going to use it. Now this one I did in Cajun Craze. I did one before in Calypso Coral, And I'm going to show you, we're going to get 2 of these, or you could use 2. So I took it to my actually rotary trimmer because I wanted it to be not get, sometimes with that other trimmer with just a blade that runs down, it can break it, you know, especially with all these little pieces. So I do like to use my rotary trimmer to cut things like that in half. You could use your scissors if it was going to tear it up, or if it doesn't matter to you that it tears it up, you can just create 2 of these trees. So we're going to put it like that on our frame, and we'll just have to trim the tip of it off. So I'm going to create this one on this side. I do already have my other half done, so we can compare and see which one you like. All right, so I have a piece of white here. I didn't like just the whole scene here of cardstock behind that tree. It needed to come to life with a more realistic, I thought, piece of making sky and everything. So this one's going to be a little different. Okay, I'm going to use, I'm going to add my own stone. I guess I could cut the one from the deer off, but this one's going to be vertical. That happened quicker because of my blending brush was already inked. And let's see about the green. I think I'm going to need a little more of it. Hold that up. Try not to wiggle my table quite so much. Okay, and now we're going to stamp our grass again with this cute little grass piece. I didn't even really notice that when I first bought it, and I was like, what is that stamp? And I was like, oh, it's grass. Working a little quicker this time. Oops. Hopefully that gets covered up. If not, I will. Oh, I did it again. That's what you get for working too fast, is you make mistakes. But we're going to go with that. I may not glue everything down to make another one, but I know, like I said, we still have a whole nother card to get to. Okay, and then this will go behind here. And I do want to stamp the ducks again. You know, that could kind of look like a little land piece. What may fix it, I'm going to, I keep my videos real so that if you make the same mistakes, you know what to do. I'm going to see how it works just putting some leaf over where I inked up the side of that. Sometimes I trim these because it is quite a big piece. I may just be making more of a mess, but we're going to go with that. Like I said, I may recreate it and not glue it all the way down, just lightly. Okay, so there we go with that. And this tree is going to go on this side. This one, I think I told you, it's colored with Calypso Coral. And the one that I had a full one of to show you the size of it, it was done in Cajun Craze. So we're going to do it like that. And then let me see my finished one so I don't forget anything. All right, we're going to use the pumpkin stamps. Okay, and I cut mine out with, I made a cut file for the pumpkins. And this is how I colored them. I stamped them in Calypso Coral. I'm going to get another block and I'm going to get my Calypso Coral blending brush right here. I should have used my side table more because I've got so much stuff over here on my side. All right, I'm just going to use my spot and put some spot on the block. Okay, blend it out well. And I'm just going to put my pumpkins up there and color them like this. This is where you get inky fingers. Quick and easy coloring. And then I use, like my pecan pie, you could use your marker or the blends for the stem. Didn't do these. I did that one already. I must have done it with the light. Okay, and then we're going to line up our, and this is where I can do my pumpkins to hide that. So I'm going to put 3 across the bottom here. I'm going to go ahead and glue these down. So I'm going to do the 2 on the outside flat. And kind of straight. And then put this one up with some dimensionals on the center. Straighten out my pumpkins there. I like to still show the stitching, so that's why I put them up a little bit. I love the little pumpkins we got in this set, and I love the ducks. I thought it was a really nice stamp set for this kit. Okay, so now when you're working with this tree, especially if you cut it in half, you don't have a lot of give to get the bark to show. So I kind of line it up and I start out with Scotch tape, or you could use tear and tape. I'm having a hard time. I usually set this down. Okay, work it up there, and then the top of the tree piece. You know what, I need to use tear and tape because the Scotch tape could come loose, and I'm just not going to take off the backing of it. All right, try to go where it doesn't show. Okay, so that gets our tree on there, and then once I get it up there, this is where I just follow along the frame to cut off the top. Stick that behind, and then here. Like I said, I'm not going to glue this one because I think I can do better than that and make a better scene. But I can show you my finished one. Oh, I didn't do the ducks either. So this is the one where I use the other half of the tree. And I put it on this side, and this one's on this side. So you can get 2 out of one big tree, or if you like them all on this side, you just have to stamp multiple trees. So I did add the ducks, and you can put a sentiment on this one. I thought it was pretty. I didn't want to really cover anything else up. So that is my second card. All right, moving along. And I forgot to show you, this is the first one finished, and I did add a sentiment, and then I did one of the leaves from our die set there on it. Again, we're going to use a thick white card base. We're going to bring in the tree, okay, from the kit. And then again, I want to bring the tree to life by making a scene behind there. You can kind of skip along if you want to, but I'm going to add some rocks in this one. My tape is not holding. So let's get out the blue. Hopefully this one goes as fast as the other one did. It's kind of a toss-up of how much do I want to pre-do versus show, and kind of teach as I go along. Because sometimes I don't, and I get comments like, oh, I'd like to see how you did that. And so, like I said, it's kind of hard to decide how much to show and how often. But since this one's different, I did want to show how I made the rocks. Let's make the grass a little bit darker. First, we want to put the stone on there, and with that same stamp set from the autumn trees, there's a couple different rock scenes, and I kind of really preferred, I like them both, I just went with that one. So I have it on a clear block. You could do this with your Stamparatus, but for ease of this video, I'm going to use my good old Stamp-A-Majig tool. You know, they're hard to see. First they were on Amazon. At last I looked, they were not. You could just free stamp it, but I want to see exactly where it's going to go. I'm going to use gray granite ink. Okay, so I put it on this little imaging sheet, it's called. And that way I can see where I'm going to stamp it. So I want it kind of right there because the tree is going to come over this tree right here. You can kind of line that up and see where you want it. I think that looks like a good spot. So you put that there. Like I said, I'm going to do it in gray granite and not press too hard in case I got ink all over. Okay, so now I have my rock with some grass. So I did it all in gray granite. I'm going to color the rocks with gray granite. And here where the leaves are, I just kind of go around them. This is the lighter one. Sometimes I go in with the darker one afterwards, but I just kind of want to see. And then for the grass, I think I used my marker, and this is the old one that has little fine tips. Okay, just to kind of bring out the green in that. You can use the marker bullet, the blends bullet tip to do the same thing. So even though we stamped it in gray granite, they kind of take on a green look when I go over it like that. Kind of even onto the rock. And then if you wanted to bring in some darker, you could do that as well. But I think I'm going to go with that. And as the blends dry, they do get a little lighter. So that's just how I did that. But now I want to bring my more grass back in. Like I said, I edited out where I made one with grass because I forgot to put the stone on there first. So kind of made a little scene just to give this tree some life to it. Okay, so then we can put this behind there. Isn't that much nicer than the one then behind that green stuff? But we need our ducks. I'm calling them ducks from now on, and I want to do them in early espresso. Now you can decide, like, would you want to put a sentiment here? I'm going to put my ducks high in the sky. Make sure they're going the right direction too, that they're not flying upside down. That really brings it to life, I think. Okay, and this is where we're going to use the outside layer of that frame, okay, to put on our card base. I'm just going to kind of piece things together here so you know what I did. So you could put this directly on there. I matted it with some Cajun Craze. And I did these ducks in Cajun Craze. So which do you like better? So like I said, I did mat that with a piece of, believe it or not, this is a old retired called like Dusty Durango or something like that. I just have so much cardstock I need to use. I thought it went fine, but not Calypso Coral. Cajun Craze is the current color and the coordinating color. So here is that finished card. I think I really like the Early Espresso ducks better. I'm not going to try to go over that. I would probably make a mess of it, and it's already glued and everything. I did put this piece on dimensionals, so you can't even see that is white on the inside. Okay, guys, thank you so much for sticking with me. Let me switch to myself. I'm going to remember this time. Okay, thanks for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed these alternatives. So I've used one whole card base to make 6 cards, the ones I pre-did and the ones I did with you today. So again, thanks for watching. Be sure and subscribe and ring that bell for notifications of when my next video is out. Hopefully I will get it out by Monday or so. So until then, have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.